Welcome, everyone. It's really an honor to hold this space for all of you. Now, the topic here, and maybe Elder, you can just pop it up, is how safe is it? And if you just look at this picture of this guy, he's trying to achieve something great, like achieve greatness. A lot of us want to achieve greatness, but that can put us in places where we don't feel as comfortable as we might, where to get extreme results, to get the extraordinary, we have to show up as extraordinary in everything we do. And if we make a mistake, it can really, every move we make counts, right? Every move, how we are in our inner state of being, our level of focus, how we're showing up on the inside and the outside matters. So that's the journey we're going on to understand, well, what does it really mean for safety? Now, this is, of course, a very, very broad topic, like an incredibly broad topic. There's so much more we could spend time on. But what we want to give you here is the key pieces that can really unlock what's going on for you. That's the intention of the talk, is to orient a little bit and to get very practically into some tips around doing and being around psychological safety. So here we go. Let's get started. So the starting place we want to go is, well, what is safety? Why do we want to care about it? Like, why is this important to us in the workplace? Like, how does this relate to everything that's going on here? So let's dive into this. Everyone here has heard of the company called Google. And there's something at Google they created called Project Aristotle. And what was really fascinating with this company, Google, is that we all know it's a high-performing company, but what they discovered is that some of their teams were extraordinary. They were the best of the best. And so Project Aristotle was for Google to discover how they could be better Googlers, how they could learn what these extraordinary teams were doing. And from that, help hopefully replicate across Google what is high performance. Now, you're thinking, okay, well, what does this have to do with safety? Well, here's the really interesting thing. The number one finding was across all these extraordinary high performance teams. They all had different practices. They were doing different things, but psychologically, they all had psychological safety. That was the number one common unifying theme. People could say anything. They could speak their mind. They had what we call equal voice, right? So that is what's required to create high performance, that people are in a place where they can be themselves, they can say whatever needs to be said to help the organization succeed in its organizational purpose, to get that project outcome, to create that amazing product, to have that extraordinary brainstorming session. Psychological safety is the layer that sits under everything else. Now, you're thinking about, well, safety, like what is this? How do we even understand this? So I'm going to give you a really quick lesson in psychological safety. It turns out what we are as mammals, right? We have this fight or flight response system. And when our fight or flight response system gets activated, our level of psychological safety plummets. And when it plummets, we go into fight or flight, which means that our bodies get ready for action. Now, here's the really interesting part, is that our frontal cortex, the seat of our reasoning, is not considered an essential organ. So when our body, when all the blood rushes into our body or muscles to take action, it comes away from not just our digestive system and other long-term or functioning organs, but also from our frontal cortex, our brain. So our brain's ability to function, our ability to reason, our ability to be creative, to think of, find innovative solutions, gets impaired as our level of psychological safety gets impaired, right? Well, but wait, why does psychological safety relate to physical safety? How is that connected? Well, it turns out the human nervous system is designed so that the same system is used for psychological safety as for physical safety. So when we feel a psychological threat, when we feel fear, we feel anxiety, we feel worry, our brain function starts to degrade. The blood supply to our brain starts to get cut off. So that's why we need safety, because when people are feeling totally psychologically safe internally and their environment safe around them, then the blood supply goes all the way on and we're operating at our best selves and we can create the extraordinary, right? We talk about Agile being about people. Looking after psychological safety, supporting psychological safety in your environment is the foundation of looking after people, of creating a people-centric environment. Sometimes they say The shortest definition of Agile is people over process. It's the first line of the manifesto. And so this is the heart of Agile, is focusing on the people. And so psychological safety in our coaching practice is essential to understand that each interaction with a person, each interaction with a team, that we're paying exquisite attention to psychological safety and how, from what we're doing and how we're being in our inner state, and how that's impacting the people around us. So that's our requirement as coaches. To create the extraordinary around us, we need to show up in extraordinary ways, just like that person climbing on the rocks. All right. So what is safety? Let's just clarify our understanding of what actually is psychological safety. So what I'm going to ask you to do is go to this poll. So I'm going to ask you to open up a browser on your phone, or open up a tab in your window, and go to this URL, pollav.com/orgs. It's anonymous. You don't need to register. So just go to this URL, and we'll go to our first poll. We're going to use this poll a couple of times, so it's really helpful if you can help us co-create here. So I'm inviting you to participate and co-create. So the very first poll question, and the poll question will be again at the top of this page here, is what behaviors create a psychologically safe environment? What behaviors create a psychologically safe environment? So you can put in the same word and the word will get bigger. You can put in other words. So we're seeing humor, listening, trust, acceptance, empathy, honesty, kindness, listening, vulnerability, laughing, compassion. Yeah, keep going. This is really, really gorgeous what you guys are creating. So what's actually happening now is, as a learning community here together, we're co-creating a shared definition. Using all of our wisdom, we're pooling it together to create a sense of the behaviors that we need to have as human beings, as coaches, as partners in our environments, to create a psychologically safe environment. All right, so let's just look at some of the words here: trust, empathy, respect, listening, kindness, compassion. Yeah, so just stop voting and let this word cloud settle down here. It's kind of jumping around. So let's just let it settle down. All right, so this is, if everyone just looks at the screen, this is the definition of psychological safety, the behaviors that we need to do to create this. So the question is that happening? The question is, are these behaviors, is this what we're seeing all around us every day, all day long? Or are we seeing something different? Just take a moment to reflect. Are you seeing these behaviors at your workplace all day long? So we're going to ask you this question, like, how safe is your environment? On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is fear, you're going to try to protect yourself, to safety, where you can be yourself, you can say whatever needs to be said, you can be authentic in who you are. It's okay to be you. How safe is your environment right now? So we're seeing answers all across the spectrum here. So it's great to see the largest peak is really at around a 7, with I guess almost a quarter of people responding there. So it's great. So you're sensing a higher level of safety. So no matter where we are on the spectrum, what I've discovered in my journey is that focusing on psychological safety, focusing on really looking after people in an exquisite, extraordinary way, is a never-ending journey. It's like never, oh yeah, we're safe, job done. It's actually an ongoing, continual process, because that's how human beings are. We're concerned only about what's happening right now, not what happened last week or last year. It's what's going on in my environment right now. So we're going to go into 2 different dimensions of safety, the doing and the being of safety. So we're going to go into these 2 different dimensions to give you a sense of how you can improve in both of these dimensions. So here we go. Let's start with the Agile context. We know that Agile practices and doing Agile is different from the agile mindset and being agile. Right? Bob Hartman originally coined this concept, and this illustration we created really kind of brings it to life, is that there's these two dimensions. So when we're thinking about agile or showing up in an agile way, it's not just about doing the practices, it's about being agile. It's operating with an agile mindset, an agile worldview, seeing people from an agile lens, right? And if we think about it, because agile is about people, it's really about, well, how do we do that to up our agile games? How do we do that from the perspective of psychological safety? So let's go into the doing. So what I'd like you to think with the doing is, and this is where it gets very interesting. Some people are like, okay, well, Michael, what do I do right now to create greater psychological safety around me, either with a one-on-one coaching session or in the team or the organization I'm coaching? What do I start doing? And it turns out starting to do something new is not as important as stopping the things you're doing right now that are taking away safety. So I'm gonna give you a visual here. Adding in something new to support safety will give you this much value. Finding what you're doing now and eliminating a safety reducer will give you this much value, because people respond very strongly, 5 times as much, to negative stimulus. So find the things that are causing damage right now and stop doing them. Very naturally, healthier things will start to happen. That's the simple recipe around doing. So you're thinking, well, what do you mean? Like, how do I know what things are causing problems? That's what we're going to go into. So the tip here is to stop causing damage. And you think, well, I'm not showing up at work intending to cause damage. I'm not going to work intending to take away people's psychological safety. But this is where our awareness of what we're doing as a coach becomes really important. And what I'm inviting you to do here is to open up the possibility that some of the things that you're doing are actually impairing the safety of others. That's the invitation I have for you. So rather than think about what you personally are doing and kind of that might be not as comfortable a place, let's collectively look at where the places in our agile transformations where we're actually creating damage. So we'll go to this poll, and this poll question is very interesting. It says, what have you seen in agile initiatives that take away psychological safety? So we all know that people start agile initiatives with good intentions, but somehow things go wrong. We operate not from our best selves, not from an agile approach necessarily. So you see mandates, telling people they have to change, fixed delivery dates, using metrics as a weapon, using visibility for challenge, forcing a framework. Yeah, so just take a moment, not just to put in your own answer, but read through the other answers people have put here. Your community of coaches that are eager to learn and grow at this retreat. What have they put in here? Just take a moment to look through all their answers and just check off the ones that apply for you. Give them a thumbs up to say, hey, yeah, I've seen that too. I've seen damage caused through Agile for that. So again, it's not Agile that's the problem. Agile, we can think of as a tool and approach. And Agile can be used for good or it can be used for destruction. And I think the greatest challenge that we have as a community today is that Agile is actually being used for destruction in many, many cases. And even though that's not our goal, that's not our intention, unfortunately, because of conditioning, because of traditional business practices, it can really end up that way. So reading off what we see here on the screen, the typical challenges are mandates, command and control, conflicting interference from management, using metrics as a weapon. Yeah, so great. Thank you so much. Just to let everyone know, I'm going to be sharing some of these results via social media afterwards. So if you're following me on social media, usually on LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on. So let's continue. Let's continue on this. So this is what we're seeing creating a lot of damage. And so we can see at an aggregate level what's happening with the overall organizational transformation. Even though they're good intentions, there's actually a lot of damage and challenge being caused. So now let's get very practical. What can you do? What can you do yourself personally? So here's the one very specific coaching tip. And this coaching kit can take you very deep. It actually could be a practice for your entire coaching career, which is to ask for permission. Ask for permission. Do you have a green light? People are ready to proceed, or are you actually getting a red light? So what's going on here? Well, each of you are passionate and excited about helping people. That's absolutely true. But just think about it when someone tried to help you, but you didn't want their help. Someone forced their help on you when you didn't want it. How did that feel? What you may notice is that feels actually really uncomfortable. So the problem that we have as a community is not that we don't help people. The problem is that we help people too much when they don't want our help. So asking for permission is just a simple safety check to make sure that you're only helping people who want help. And just because someone generally wants your help on a specific day in a specific moment, they may not want it. But an hour later, they'll be really excited about it. So it's about honoring the person to support their personal level of psychological safety. That's what we're speaking about here. So it's not very complex. It's pretty straightforward. You can ask a simple question. You can ask something like, would you like some advice now? Or how can I help you be successful? There are many, you've probably heard of powerful questions. There are many types of questions that are open-ended that are asking essentially for permission. Would you like some help now? I'm noticing you've got a challenge here. Would you like some help with that? When we ask for permission, I'm going to tell you why this is so important. Because what the person does when you ask them a question, they go internally and they say, do I want help right now? And it gets them to connect with their desire that might pull them out of the moment, might pull them out of the place where they're stuck to say, oh, wait a second. Yeah, this isn't going as well as I'd like. Ooh, maybe some help would be good. Yes, I'd like some help, right? And that giving someone that space to choose for themselves what they want in that moment is what supports their voice, their psychological safety, and their ability to create. It makes them open to listen. The reason you want to help them and give your advice is because you're pretty sure it'll benefit them. We're not questioning your wisdom and your experience. What we're trying to get you to do here is to understand that, is the person in a position to receive? Do you have full permission to share right now? And what that does is it puts the person in listening mode, where once they've said, yeah, I'm ready to receive, okay, go, or hey, you know what, not right now, maybe later, it lets them actually, it makes sure whatever communication, whatever help you're giving them can actually create value, which is why you're doing it in the first place. Now we often get in this challenge of, well, you know, managers should be coaches, coaches should just do pure coaching, but we know, you know, from coaching, and actually Lisa Adkins is going to be talking later from her book, that there are many stances of a coach, right? So sometimes, especially if you're working as an agile coach, you're not just acting as a pure coach, listening, responding, helping people find their problems. That's very beautiful when it's appropriate. But other times you're using your experience, your wisdom, your knowledge of agile and your knowledge of people to help get unblocked. So the question is, how do we actually pivot effectively from these roles? And, you know, our advice is like, if you keep this tip of ask for permission, it's the secret. Think about this. You may think because you're the manager, you may think because you're the coach, that you can just go help people whenever you want and you don't need to check for permission. Well, think about it this way. Think about your doctor who looks after your physical health. Your doctor doesn't just come into your home and start telling you what to do. Before your doctor will give you a prescription, will give you expert advice on what to do, what do you have to do? Well, you have to decide you've got a problem. You have to go reach out to the doctor. You have to make an appointment. You have to show up for the appointment. And then you have to tell the doctor, hey, this is my problem. Can you please help me? You will ask the doctor for help. You say, can you please help me? And the doctors will say, sure, here's a prescription. Or they'll ask some questions to diagnose and so on, and then they'll give you a prescription. So we're asking you as coaches, use your expertise, use your wisdom, use your experience. That's what people want. However, check for permission. Only share that wisdom, that experience, that advice when you have permission to share it. So if you're normal, you've been over-helping. You've been giving advice, you've been trying to change things, you've been taking suggestions, which is very well intentioned, but you haven't had permission. People have not been in a place where they're ready to receive it. So this is what we're leaving is a very deep, deep practice for creating extraordinary coaching, for really checking with whether you have permission. And then that ties back in. When you do that, it's going to develop your relationship with people. It's going to develop your connection with people, and it's going to support their psychological safety, because you're saying, hey, I want to honor you, your sovereignty of what is important for you. And I only want to give you help if that's what's right for you. And so this will turn you, this one tip can turn you into a much, much more powerful coach, because you're giving the right amount of help at the right time, at the right moment, when people are ready for it. And this applies to teams. Like, does your team want, if you're a scrum master or a coach, does the team want your help right now? What do they want for themselves? What does success look like for them? So it starts to pivot you, the simple question of asking for permission starts to pivot you into much greater curiosity. So that's the tip. I hope you get a lot of value out of it. Let us know how it's working for you. We'd love to hear if you want to connect with us on social media, LinkedIn or otherwise. All right. So now we're getting kind of the halfway mark. So it's actually time for a safety break. And this is actually an activity. I'm going to invite you to join me in this safety break. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go. So that was actually a test. I'm the joke, right? So what you can see is, how do we respond when there's an emergency? That's what safety is all about. Now, we talked about this tip about asking for help, about the doing. But what I want you to do is to talk about the being, right? The being is actually, we can call it the cat's meow where safety's at, is what is our interior state? How are we functioning inside our being? How safe do we feel? That internal sense of safety, our interior state of being, is what's going to determine how we react in a crisis. Like, we just had a crisis right now. It's like the universe was having fun with me. And just to let you know, we're in Canada, but our internet here is rock solid. We do training all over the world virtually, and it actually wasn't our internet. I think it's actually this computer configuration with Zoom with the window, and then Zoom gets unhappy, but that's a technical detail for the geeks on the call. Let's just come back to the topic of safety. So it's about our interior state of being. That's what we need in the workplace. So when that emergency happens, when we can stay psychologically safe, the blood supply to our brain is fully on, and we can use and calm our total intelligence, our intuition, and calmly look at what's happening to take action, right? When we go into fight or flight, our brain shuts down. Our brain shuts down. So what we're asking, So what we're inviting you to do is to notice your interior state. And I'll give you an example story. If you've heard of Ricardo Semler, the creator of Semco, a Brazilian organization that's created incredible growth year after year after year. They created a democratic workplace where people are passionate, engaged, coming to work. And when he walks into the room, because he has such a high level of inner psychological safety, where, everything's fine, we'll just work it out somehow. He has such an unshakable calmness and belief that when his leader walks in the room and everyone's in a panic, he can just say, hey guys, it's okay. Take a breath. We'll figure it out somehow. It's not the end of the world, right? When you have a leader who can show up that way in their interior state, when you as a coach can be that way in your internal state, you can help others. So the quote I want to share with you is that only a transformed person can transform the world. We talk about agile transformation, like a fundamental change in how things are functioning, which requires doing and being. It requires this shift of mindset, a shift of consciousness to a more evolved consciousness. That requires an inner transformation. So for us to operate and be effective as coaches, as influencers, as agents of change, that requires inner transformation. That requires a shift in our interior state. Psychological safety in ourselves is a transmission. It's an inner feeling. It's not a doing. It's not a gimmick. It's not a practice. It's not this quick tip. It's an evolution of our inner being towards higher states of consciousness where we feel psychologically safe, no matter what's happening around us. And Ricardo Semler was really lucky. His environment when he was young allowed him to show up that way in life. Me, I didn't grow up that way. I've had to evolve and grow and cultivate my own inner psychological safety. That's the essential work that we as coaches or trainers need to do with people, is to not just help them with tactics and strategies and practical things they can do in the external world, the doing, but more importantly, the essence of it all is the being. It's our interior state that determines everything that happens. So everyone knows who this is. This is Mahatma Gandhi. He was able to liberate India from the British through nonviolence because his consciousness was so evolved, because he had such a high level of psychological safety in his interior state that no matter what happened, he was laser focused on the outcome and the cause. Right? His statement, be the change you want to see in the world, is actually the guidance. If you want to create psychological safety around you, it requires that you cultivate it inside of yourself. So, what can be done about this? How can we navigate this? How do I understand what my psychological safety is? Well, think about when, Homer reminds us of how we can be. Like, when do you get upset? Think about your workday. What frustrates you? What annoys you? Where are you feeling conflict with others? You can probably think about that email where you read the email and you started to get kind of activated a response. I know Lisa's going to talk about triggers later on. Paying attention to that space where we're no longer operating our best, where our interior state has taken a nosedive. That's what we're talking about becoming aware of and starting to adapt to create a shift in our inner being. So we're going to give you one powerful coaching tip to allow you to work on your interior state. So this is a long-term game. This technology will give you a short-term benefit and work on the long-term gain of permanently elevating your interior state to greater psychological safety. And the tip is this, it's actually from a book, Emotional Science. Emotional Science, the book I co-authored with my wife and co-trainer, Audrey. And it's a deeper understanding than most people have about how the emotional system actually works, how your emotional system actually works. So there's a lot in the book. We're not going to go through all the contents in the time we have, but we just want to give you one key practice from the book, which is called Get Clear. And the Get Clear technique is about how can you get clear yourself? How can you get yourself into a more resourceful state rapidly and immediately so that you can work on your psychological safety? So the practice is very simple. It's becoming aware of the physical sensation of your body related to whatever the disturbing event is. There's some sort of challenge or disturbance, noticing the physical sensation in your body and then breathing into it. So we're going to do that right now together. So just take a moment. If you're comfortable, again, everything here is optional. So if you're comfortable, just close your eyes and just take 3 deep breaths. And as you're breathing, just become aware of one challenging situation, something which is bringing up a lot of emotions for you. Either fear, worry, anger, frustration, be any emotion. Something that's dramatically affecting your interior state. And just notice that physical sensation in your body as you're thinking about that situation. Just notice what it's feeling like in your body. There's some sort of triggering event, and then there's an emotional reaction. What is the physical feeling in your body right now? Often people feel this often in their chest area, like a tightness or some sort of physical sensation. Just notice that physical sensation. This is the anchor of your emotion in your body right now. And what I'd like you to do is just breathe into that physical sensation, that discomfort in your being. Could be fear, could be like an anger that has a crunchy feeling, whatever it is for you. Just start to breathe into it. It's going to be uncomfortable, but just breathe into that discomfort. And our tendency is to move away from the pain, but just open up your awareness and just let it in. Just sink right in to that uncomfortable feeling. And what you're doing right now through your awareness, by keeping your awareness on this uncomfortable sensation, is you're actually creating a shift in your interior state. Not because you're trying to make a change, but just by bringing your awareness alone. So just continue to breathe and stay with the sensation. Your mind may get distracted. Just come back to the physical sensation in your body and just breathe into it. And just take a moment now to notice on a scale of 1 to 10, how intense is this feeling in your body right now? Just make a note from 1 to 10, where 10 is very intense, 1 is very, very minor. Just make a note to yourself how intense this feeling is. Okay, great. Now come back, take a few deep breaths. Open your eyes. Now, what you may notice is that you're not at a 0 yet. If you're at a 0, you're clear. There's no work to be done on your interior state. You're showing up extraordinary, exactly the way you want to. If you're still feeling a number greater than 0, some sort of tightness in your body, some sort of uncomfort, that is how you're showing up in the world. Everything you do will carry that energy, carry that tightness, that fear, that uncomfortableness. So every single action, every single thing you say will carry that sensation. And that's how you're impacting others. You're transmitting that feeling to others. That's what you're doing. So what we're inviting you to become aware of as a coach is your interior state, and understand there's work to be done there on our being to work on our own psychological safety, right? Because if we're feeling totally psychologically safe, things would happen. We'd feel totally fine. What we're speaking about and sharing here is a technology for shifting your consciousness, or something we talk about, the Agile mindset. It's the same thing as to getting ourselves to operate in a more evolved state. Okay. So I think this is my final poll question, which is, how safe are you when you think about your workplace? How safe would you say that you are? Are you totally resourced, totally open all the time? Or are you feeling shut down? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Are you sometimes feeling disconnected and disengaged with what's happening around you? So just take a moment to check in with, what are you feeling for yourself? What level of safety are you feeling in your interior based on what your environment is? Great, that's wonderful. So we're seeing answers, people really all across the board here. And it's great to see a peak around a 7 there. That's wonderful. So we want to leave you with one super powerful takeaway tip. This is a free download on our website. It's called Your Agile Transformation Keys. And what this white paper does, and you can share this with anyone you want if you want to influence conversations or whatever, is this gives you a way to talk about what is agile transformation that is safety built into it. So it's a set of contrasting patterns, says like, this is the unsafe pattern, this is the safe pattern, essentially is what the whole thing does, of what business patterns you can use in understanding agile transformation that lead to success. So if you're interested in creating successful agile transformations, we'll point you to that. All right, so I just want to give you a quick recap. We've talked about safety, how safety is the base of our level of functioning. It's the most important thing that we can focus on if we really want to look after people. And that when we think about how we are impacting safety around us as a coach, there's the doing part and there's the being part. So we shared the tip around permission, that focusing on how we're doing, how we're interacting will take us very, very far on our journey of evolution. The other part is the being, becoming aware of our interior state, that it's our interior state that's actually impacting people much more than what it is we do, because our interior state touches everything we do. the underlying transmission of how we are as a human being and how we are feeling. And so that's the invitation for you, is to focus on the full part of Agile, the doing and the being, and invite you to a journey to unlock your leadership to be a profound agent of change. So we're going to open it up now to questions. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here. And I'd really love to take some questions now and clarify anything you're wondering about or help you go deeper on this topic.
All right, so we're going to give option for participants to unmute themselves. If you'd like to speak up, please use the mute button to unmute yourself.
Michael, this is Paula Ryan. I have a question. So how do we solicit from our team? What can we do to find those places where people feel unsafe and make it, you know, I know some of the techniques to create safety through my actions, but how do I solicit the how unsafe are you feeling? Because I've been looking at this from the like 4 levels of psychological safety, right? You know, where are they, you know, in that spectrum? Are they not feeling included? Do they just not feel like they're safe to learn? Are they safe to contribute, or is it challenging? I don't know. How do I get that back from the team?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. Thank you so much for asking that. So when we talk about listening to the team to understand what's going on for them, or any group of people, or listening to leaders, what's going on with them, there are 2 different kinds of listens. One is where we have an idea of what we're going for and kind of doing sort of a structured listen. The other one is what we call an open listen, like kind of an open discovery, right? Discover what's going on. And because we're talking about emotions, we're not looking for the analytical, right? Emotions live down here in our bodies. So we want to use a technology that gets emotions on the table. Now, I've used a lot of different facilitation techniques, a lot of different technology. I'd say probably for getting emotions on the table, probably the best technology is Lego. I'm a certified Lego with Lego Strategic Play or Lego Serious Play. And asking people giving them Lego, with at least has one little minifigure and a bunch of different parts. You can use the specialized kits, or you can just go buy ordinary Lego. And I ask teams this question of like, well, what's it like working here right now? A very simple question. What's it like for you working here right now? And get them to build a model. Very simple, right? Give them 5 minutes, 7 minutes, play some fun music. And then what's next? You get them to write on a sticky note the title of their model, the sculpture they built. And then you give everyone a chance for equal voice, which comes along with psychological safety, to share what is their model about? Explain what it's like for them working there right now. And what will happen is they'll describe their environment. So instead of trying to go after psychological safety directly, we can create a situation like this to bring up things that will touch upon psychological safety. Like they'll say things like, oh, I feel overwhelmed, or there's so many different things going on, it's hard to keep track of things. One person called it spinning plates. They feel like they're spinning plates and trying to keep them all in the air. And when you do this kind of open listen to get the emotions on the table, it's very, very, very powerful. And of course, you can use other technologies like getting people to do drawings, going to other things. If you want to do more like a structured listen, doing things like the Gallup 12 engagement survey is a very, very powerful tool for looking at what are the key factors, or even just printing out the 12 questions. And just getting the team to do a retrospective or some type of activity where they move those cards around and say, well, which ones of these are more true for us and which ones are less true? So whether you do it through a survey or you do it through an interactive activity, those would be the place to go. So an unstructured using Lego, structured using Gallup 12 engagement questions or others. There's actually tons to go on this topic. It's a very deep topic. But my own personal view is that everything that we do in an agile transformation, usually we're starting off on the wrong foot. Usually the whole agile transformation is done in a coercive way that's actually taken away psychological safety. So as an agile coach or a scrum master, you may already have a bad reputation that has nothing to do with you, but has to do with the fact that you're associated with the management of the overall organization. And that's why coming back to this tip about permission is so important, that if you tell people, look, I'm not the agile police. I'm not here to make you do something. I'm here to help you be successful only if you want. And I'm really curious, what does your definition of success look like? because I'm really interested in helping, if that's what you want. And when you start approaching people that way versus like, hey, how do we get Scrum working? Or how do we do, everyone, we're going to do a retrospective now, right? That's actually kind of in some ways imposing on a team. Maybe your team doesn't want to have a retrospective right now, which means maybe it's better to wait. So hopefully that helps answer your question. Thank you. That was a great question.
Michael? Sorry. So I have a question for somebody else who I know, right? They were set into a role, supposedly to be a deputy to the leader of the entire transformation, right? And they got launched into the role, but the actual leader didn't say anything about them being that deputy until probably about like 2 weeks in. Anyway, so the leader didn't do that. The leader told her to go ahead and feel out the situation and get some background information before she could get up to speed. She tries to do that, and now because they see what's happening, the team see what's happening, what do you call like a queen bee syndrome, where they personally start even attacking her work now. So in that situation, right, how would you necessarily ask permission when it reaches to that point where I don't know if they're feeling intimidated or because the whole dynamics wasn't clear as to what she's doing there or how she's supposed to be going about what she's doing wasn't clear. I don't know if that caused them to attack. So that's my question. How do you ask permission in that scenario when you personally are supposed to be the leader or the deputy leader, but then the leader didn't tell you or tell the team necessarily in any strong way that, oh yeah, this is my deputy and she's supposed to be taking over and doing all of this other stuff?
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good question. So first of all, it's a super complex situation. So I don't have all the details, but what I will talk about is some common principles that may apply. So if they do, great. If not, I'll just do my best here. That's first one is, what's the relationship health, right? The reason we ask for permission is because we want to make sure we keep healthy relationships. And we do that by honoring people's level of psychological safety. And oftentimes we think because someone's the manager, they have the power and the authority, that they can use that power and authority to make changes. Well, it's true, but power can be used for good or for destruction. When the characteristic of a great leader is they use power for good and they make decisions that people like and approve of. And so a really effective leader is going to check for permission. They're going to invite people to make changes first before, and they'll only use their authority. I'll quote Deming here. The secret of a great manager is to use authority only as a last resort, right? Only when all their means of exhaustion. But most people with power and leadership positions need to learn how to lead through influence.
So lateral leadership.
Learn how to lead through. No, it's not about lateral. It's about high performance leaders treat everyone like a volunteer, which require, but see, the thing is we can't comprehend that. There's an interior shift in our mindset and consciousness to understand how when we show up in ways that oppress people, it actually kills the performance. So most challenges actually happen in the workplace because people are using their authority in ways that are not serving the people fully, or ways that have not gotten people's input and advice, that are not fully honoring their intelligence, their wisdom. If as a leader, people only make decisions that honor people's intelligence and wisdom, you're a rock star leader. It's fine. You're using your power perfectly. The challenge is leaders, we're not using our power. And we use our power inappropriately, it reduces people's psychological safety because they're being oppressed. They're not being valued. They're not being considered. So I see that we've hit the time bar. So
thank you.
It's just been a great pleasure connecting with everyone here. Please, again, just connect on social media. Would love to continue the conversation there. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Michael.